Welcome back to another episode here on the Hard Hustle Podcast. Our guest, she had insurance, a stable job, and a strong support system, and still she felt invisible. Today we're going to be talking to Tracy. Tracy, what was the first memory when you knew this system needs to really change? I mean, you had a personal experience that really launched your healthcare mission 22 years in the making. I can only imagine now you just have so much insight.
I think anytime you go through anything of a personal nature, right, you see what's working and you see what needs improvement. And for me, it was definitely an opportunity to feel seen as a person. And so, being in the hospital's hard. Not feeling well is hard. My experience was a pregnancy with twins, and we had struggled to get pregnant, and I had thought that was the going to be the challenge. It didn't dawn on me that staying pregnant would also be a challenge, and so at 24 weeks, I went into hard labor, and those are the conversations where they say, you need to get to the hospital immediately. We're going to give you steroid shots. There's a chance that you lose both of the babies. Long story short, I was in the hospital for 6 weeks, flat on my back, on bed rest, and that's challenging for anyone. And I had, to your point, all of the things, right? I had a really good job, I had insurance, I had a partner who was supportive, I had an employer who was supportive, I lived 10 minutes from the hospital, I didn't have any other children at home. I mean, again, best case scenario, and it was still really challenging, even with all of that. So who knows, whatever day in. This is before Netflix, this is before anything. I'm watching movies on the DVR, and we're crossing off every day on a laminated calendar that I stay pregnant. And one of the nurses saw that I was struggling, and said, what would make you feel better? Which, first of all, like, what a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And I said, I just want to see my dog, because I'm a huge dog lover. And at that time, that wasn't something that was done, but she immediately said, okay, we'll make it happen. And in my mind, she probably thought it was an itty bitty dog, a legally blonde type of dog. And I had Great Pyrenees. It was 90 plus pounds, full of hair. They snuck this dog up through the freight elevator. And my husband took a picture of me just laying flat on my back with this dog on me. I'm going to say ugly crying because it was not attractive. And it was just such a moment of 22 years later. I mean, I remember it vividly, being seen as a person. And that was really my beginning of my connection with Methodist Health System, where I now work. And that is really what drives me every day, is that same type of connection, to have our patients seen as people. And then we'll take care of all the rest. I mean, that's what they're there for. But they're also there to be seen as people.
I love that. And with everything you do now and you're seeing now and a leader, I mean, you're now leading the same foundation that you were a patient in. How, like, what are some of the things that you feel first as a patient or felt first as a patient with everything that you're seeing being this leader?
When I was hospitalized,
No, just now, like things that you're seeing now as a leader that you felt first as a patient. Is there anything that comes to mind?
yeah, I mean, I think there's fear, there's overwhelm, there's stress, there's uncertainty. All of that goes hand in hand. I often think being in the hospital or even going to a doctor's office is such a reminder that people have really messy, complicated lives. We all do.
Hmm.
And it's challenging. And we remember that when we're in the hospital, right? You have extra care for people, you direct them to the cafeteria or a bathroom, you understand they're going through something. And the reality is, we're all going through those same things whether we're in the hospital or not. So I think that is the driving force behind the work that we do at the foundation and at the health system, is how do we meet people where they are? Not where we'd like them to be, which is everything's going great, and of course they can afford this medicine, and of course they can follow, do the doctor's appointment follow up, but how do we meet them where they genuinely are, so that we
Hmm.
can help them?
I love that. And then that moment with your dog, I can only imagine it teaches you something about real healing, the way that you felt. Is it something that you're also still incorporating day to day for others as well?
Every day. And I think, right, the work that we get to do is all about team, and so it's manifested at all the different levels. It's the physician that sees the mom that's not going to make it to her son's graduation and calls the principal on the weekend and they do a graduation ceremony in the hospital. It is the student at our college who is a great student, but she didn't have enough money to eat for her family. And so how do we meet that person where they are, and the president of the college helping deliver food to that individual. It's a culture of meeting people where they are and realizing that everybody needs help. That's not just a sometimes thing, and it's hard. It's really hard to ask for help, but boy, it makes a difference when somebody does reach out a hand.
Has anybody asked you for a dog yet?
We have talked about dogs. We have pet therapy here. We've talked about, do our employees, would they benefit from having a pet? Because, right, being a caregiver is meeting people at really, really challenging times. Every day is hard. The person's not feeling well. They've got all the different things. So what can we do to support our own medical teams, our clinical teams? We do talk a lot about that.
I love it. I love dogs. So, anytime
Oh,
we can
same,
just incorporate
same.
these dogs. I actually just I went glamping at Disney. Of
Oh,
course, Disney's going to do it up, right?
uh-huh.
But what was the best part about it is that you were able to bring your dogs. And like how cool, right? They had this nice little cabin and you see all these dogs all over the place. And I'm like, I love when people just allow to just bring the dogs because it makes trips so much easier. Like, why would now if I can't take my dog, someone got to babysit my dog. You're missing your dog. You got to check up on your dog. But the dog was there experiencing, and my little one's she's a little older. I have a rat terrier, and you can just see it. Like the brown is now white that she used to
Yeah.
have in her face, and you can just see, you could just see she's aging for sure. This is her first trip with us, and I was like,
Oh, and she
wow,
did
I'm
well?
just so. She did well, yeah, yeah. We were in the car. I fed her some Chick-fil-A, chicken strips. Probably she's never had chicken strips, but you know what? She's at that age. Let's make her happy. I can only imagine.
Right, right.
So
You're a
I
good
love that. But
dog dad. Yes. Here,
oh,
here at our office, we do allow pets. So, every day a different dog is here. And,
oh, that's cool.
one of the great things is seeing people from finance or audit or compliance down on the ground with a dog. I'm like, you don't want to leave, do you? You're like, this is the highlight of your day. Yeah.
I have a best friend that is terrified of dogs, and
Oh,
I love pit bulls. Like I grew up with pit bulls,
okay.
and people say those are mean dogs, but I've never had any issues in the 35 years of having pit bulls. Actually, last year I lost my pit bull after 13, 14 years with her. But I will always remember when we were young, and those wild nights as a young person, we would just crash out at my place instead of her driving home. So one time she was throwing up, and she's gonna hate that I tell this story, but she was throwing up, and I said, "There's no way that I can just leave you on the carpet. Like you're gonna mess up my carpet." So, as a nice person that I thought I was, I put her in the garden tub, okay, with a pillow and comforter, and my dog stood next to her the whole night. And mind you,
Oh,
she is terrified of dogs. But
right.
because of that, she felt like, oh my God, this dog just wanted to protect me all night. She was mad that I put her in the shower, but I was like,
Right.
listen,
Well,
you weren't
you
gonna
went
mess
to
up my
bed.
carpet.
The dog was there while you went to bed. That's the part you're not adding, but yes.
So the next morning, she is outside walking the dog that she was so terrified of.
Oh,
Like anytime she come over, I had to put this dog in a crate because that's how
okay.
terrified. So now I have a picture of her actually walking the dog, and to this day she said, "That's the only dog I love, Ephraim. That dog did me no harm. It was just there to just help." And people don't see that. So I'm happy that we were able to just show love to the dogs today.
Yes, for
Um,
sure.
you mentioned school, you mentioned hospital. Tell us a little bit about what you're actually in charge of, and what are some of the resources that you guys actually have.
So, I'm the president and CEO of Methodist Hospital Foundation, which is the philanthropic arm for Methodist Hospital, Methodist Women's Hospital, Nebraska Methodist College, a bunch of different clinics. And so, our job is really to take a look at the health system needs, our community interests, and then see where there's overlap between the two, which means that we get to work on really great projects that don't just incrementally move the needle forward, but hopefully solve some of the real
Mm.
issues that we're facing thanks to donor support. So it's a great job, and it's one of those jobs where you get to see the difference that you make every day.
Yeah, you're probably in the best extension of it, right? That nonprofit organizational side of it, because you're able to help on all spectrums of it. How do I help the school? How do I help the hospital? I love that. I love that as nonprofits, like we're always an entity to something, but we still have our own kind of almost creative control in a sense, right? We don't have to kind of almost follow every single law that's out there in the healthcare space. We can do different things, so that's pretty cool. What are some of the things that you guys are seeing from the nonprofit side that you guys are able to incorporate both in the hospital, into the school, maybe like technology? I think we spoke about AI, and you were just a fan of it. Is that something that you guys are implementing in both these places?
Yeah, and so I guess I would answer that two ways. What are we seeing? We're seeing more people in need. As a nonprofit, our job is to serve everyone with dignity and to offer excellent care. And when I started charitable care 14 years ago, charitable care was a thing for uninsured people, and then it was underinsured people that had a high deductible plan and maybe couldn't set aside the money, and something catastrophic happened. And now more and more, it's everyday folks that just are not prepared for what a major health journey can look like. So there's that. And also, there is all of the advancement when it comes to technology. And so AI, virtual monitoring, different algorithms, you know, I think it can really augment excellent care. It's not ever a replacement for people, but to the degree that you can have a physician stop having to scribe, perhaps, do all of the annotating in an electronic medical record, and maybe free up more time to be spending time with patients or doing research. That's a fantastic thing. So, I think we're at the cusp of really seeing how we can align technological advances and make sure that it's never at the expense of losing the human touch.
Yeah. And I love that you're very for it. There's still some people that are so against it. Like they're living in fear because they think it's going to replace someone. But I think it, like as you mentioned, it's going to allow us to do the things that we love more. And the things that we don't love, that we didn't go to school for, writing notes all day, that we can actually AI something like that. And I just ask you, because so many people are also kind of in fear of, how do we connect while building innovation? What is your answer to that?
I think it is not doing anything in silos. And so, a meeting I had this week with innovation was with our chief strategy officer, our chief information officer, myself. How do we work on our chief nursing officer? How do we work on these things together? And what is helpful to you? I'm not a clinician. They don't need me to tell them, right? They know, they're living it. And I think that's such a reminder to all of us, is to look around the table and think who's not there, whose voice isn't being heard, who isn't represented, and are we making decisions for someone else, or are we making decisions with someone? And I think that's a real difference. And when you can have the right people around the table, that makes a really big difference.
So, Tracy, 22 years in this space because of an experience you had in your life. What were you doing prior to this, Tracy? Like, you're in healthcare 22 plus years because of an experience, but were you always wanting to be in healthcare?
No. And I think it's slightly comical, because I was an individual who probably would have struggled to ask you to buy my daughter's Girl Scout cookies. And now, I'm working with funders on projects that are tens of millions of dollars. But the difference is not for me, it's for the health system. Prior to this, I've been here 14 years. Prior to this, I had a completely different career in broadcast journalism and loved it. It was a wonderful, and that was really something that I had always wanted to do. It wasn't super conducive nights, weekends, on call, holidays, with being the type of parent that I wanted to be once my children were in school. It was just really hard to be able to be as involved as I wanted to, and so looked for something else, and I'm really fortunate that I found this.
And I'm pretty sure broadcasting really helped you out, because look at you. You're so fabulous at what you're doing today. I'm pretty sure it makes it easier when you're talking to people. I do want to go into the sense of, because I believe a lot of us are in this space of, at one point we were scared to ask, right? And now we're asking for even bigger dollars. Like, where do you think there was a shift? Like, did you have to go through some things? Was it just keep it doing it over and over until you became confident in it? Because to me, I would always remember being a nonprofit. And I knew this realtor, and obviously big realtor, you can tell he was making millions of dollars. And I said, oh, I want to get into that space. So I says, hey, like, how do I become a realtor? His response to me was, Ephraim, this is a career. This is not just an in and out. You're in the nonprofit space where people are giving out millions of dollars. You just have to go ask for it. And I'm like, how do I ask for, so much? I just, how I grew up, it just wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you overcome that?
Mm-hmm. So I think my prior background, going to the door of someone whose loved one has just been shot and killed and asking for an interview, um, that was hard. The worst someone can do in this space is
Hmm.
say no, which I don't want to minimize. No's can be devastating. They're
Of course.
important. Um, but I think it is really trying to understand what's motivating the donor, what the donor wants to achieve, and then looking for that alignment. So, early in my career, I had a donor very clearly state to me, you can ask my board for this. It's not really something I'm passionate about. I mean, he clearly told me, this is not something that I'm interested in, right? But it was something that I needed the funding for. So I asked anyway, and you know what I got back?
Oh.
Zero. And it was a real reminder because I should have known. I did know. I mean, he told me. He told me something I didn't want to hear, and I disregarded it. And so I try not to make that mistake anymore. I try to really listen and hear what people are saying and realize, right, we're playing, this is a long career, hopefully. If it's not this project, hopefully there'll be something else that they're really passionate about. And if there's some way that I can connect them to another nonprofit that may be doing the work that they're interested in, that's great too.
If the Heart and Hustle podcast has ever sparked any idea or made you think differently, do us a favor. Make sure you guys share this, post it on LinkedIn, or even text that nonprofit friend that you just have. Whatever works, this is what keeps the conversation going and allows us to just grow this community together. Seriously, we appreciate you. Mhm. So the nose very early on, very hurt. Like I hear too many no's. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I just put this on pause. Like it does become that. But the more that you do it, like you mentioned, you're just learning from all those, times. And all you need is that one yes, to be quite frank.
Yeah,
You can
and
hear so many no's.
yes,
That one yes changes the game forever.
it does in your confidence, and really great funders will help you do better, will help you be better, will help your organization. So sometimes what seems really like, why are they asking for that? Or why is it coming with this matching grant? Or why do I have to do XYZ? There's usually a strategy there, and the
Yeah.
strategy is to help you and your organization be better. And so
Mhm.
I've learned a lot of lessons that way as well.
What roles do you think donors should be playing and community members should be playing in reshaping healthcare? I hear this a lot of times that healthcare has to be reshaped. For so long, it's just been the system that has kind of been broken, and everyone wants to fix it. What do you think when it comes to these donors and community members? How can they continue to reshape?
I think that it's easy to get caught up in what's not going well, and that is accurate and true. Um, but I would say, just as a larger reflection of society, it's sometimes easy to see everything that's not working and forget everything that is. So I'm always cautioning people, for every story that we hear about the negative, there is another story out there. So just make
Hmm.
sure that you're not buying into, we need to throw everything out, because that's rarely the case with anything, with education, with healthcare, with, the stock market, with fill in the blank. So there's that. And then I think donors really want to the words of somebody earlier this week, level the playing field. Make sure that healthcare is accessible. Make sure that people are treated with dignity. Make sure that we're catching things early. And so I think the best donors look for how they can make a difference and what they can do with specific organizations. You know, we have a great organization, but that does not mean that they can give me money and we can do whatever they want. No, because that's not maybe our specialty, or there's another organization that would do XYZ better. So I think it's really knowing where your core competencies are and working with donors to make improvements along those lines.
I love that. And do you see a vision for healthcare in leadership over the next 10 years?
So much of what I've seen in the past 10 to 15 years has really been bringing healthcare to people, removing those barriers. Mobile mammography is a perfect example. We have a 3D big pink coach that cruises around that we
That's cool.
funded via philanthropy. It even has pink cones, to park and the whole bit. But it has really made a difference. And I think people thought, which I understand, this will help people who are uninsured, and it absolutely does because there's no longer a transportation barrier. We have translators so we can get past the language barrier. We have philanthropy so no one that can't afford a mammogram is turned away. But it's also for women who are notorious for putting themselves last on the list, who would never miss a well-checked visit for their child, but their own mammogram, well, I've got a meeting and I need to leave work early and I want to get to my kid's soccer game and I don't have any history of cancer, so I don't really need to get that mammogram done this year. It takes away that ability to put yourself last because it's right outside your employer's office and they're saying, take the 5-minute walk, go for it. So I think when we can meet people, when we can bring healthcare to them, when we can remove some of those barriers, we're really making a difference.
And was this something already in place before you got there, or is it something that
No,
you
this was
you
something that we funded and we worked with other community partners on. And again, being able to provide mammograms for those who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford them, that's all the work of our donors. Our funders are the ones who are saying, I get to see every month, right? This month we funded 70 mammograms for these actual women. And the peace of mind that comes from knowing it's nothing and also the early detection when it is something is huge.
you mentioned we were talking about community partners and donors, and I think one of the things I see from board members at times is that they feel, oh, we already tapped into them. We don't want to continue to reach out, or we don't want to um, overwhelm them. But I feel like I see donors a lot of times says, no, I'm willing to always donate. You just have to remind me. What do you say to boards that are kind of, oh, well, let's not reach out to them all the time, or hey, we already reached out to them last year, let's not do it this year? Because I think that's also what keeps nonprofits and organizations kind of down at times, that they have this fear that no one wants to donate 2, 3 times. What are your thoughts on that?
So I would say that's not something that I hear from our board. We believe in building relationships, and many of our donors have funded us, to your point, again and again and again, because hopefully there's alignment there. They see that it's a good investment. We're going to do exactly what we say we're going to do. We're going to steward them and show them the impact of their gift. We're going to ask for not everything under the sun, but hopefully put together a coalition of different funders that can help us get there. So I would say to other nonprofits, I get it. It's hard. But don't make a decision for someone else. Allow them, the donor, the funder, to say what they're interested in, what they're not interested in, when it's a good time, when they're overcommitted, when you should come back, what type of projects they're interested in. Those types of conversations will really help build a true relationship. And then I think it doesn't feel like I'm back asking for money again.
Yeah, I love the relationship piece. I think that's what it really takes, is to build a relationship. And I think I told you last time we spoke that I took over this foundation, and as we're putting together this gala, I'm like, I would love to have alumni to the school, but also we need to look at our community partners. We need to look at those game-changing individuals that are doing the work, and how do we collaborate with them? How do we build a relationship? Allow them to see what we got going on, to see if maybe it aligns with stuff. Because it's not always about just getting that dollar, right? It's about how can we build a long-term relationship? Because sometimes it's their resources they actually bring. Maybe it's not their dollars, but it's just the resources that they provide to us, letting us know, hey, you should talk to this person. You should go talk to this
Correct.
person. And that's what sometimes we're looking for. And so many people think it's just money, money, money. But no, I love what you said. It's let's build a long-term relationship. Because that people are always going to do business with people. So they see what you're doing and how you're doing it, and that you're really true to the mission. It becomes easier to go ask because they've been a part of that journey. And now when you ask for the first time, they're like, oh yeah, of course, I love what you're doing. So I'm with you on that. I'm with you. You're dropping some gems there. And when it comes to how people can really start to get involved in the space of making change in the nonprofit world. So many people just feel that they don't have time, right? Or they don't have money. What are some of the things they can actually be doing to help out nonprofits in the space of no money, no, maybe they say no time, but allow people to know how much time is probably really needed when it comes to volunteers?
And I think volunteering to me is, find something that you're passionate about. The legacy that we leave is how we live our lives every day. And so find something that you're passionate about. If you love animals, like we talked about dogs, go work at the Humane Society. If
Yeah.
you have been positively impacted, I met a gentleman this week who said, "Oh, I volunteer in your central supply," which is kind of an unusual area to volunteer. And I said, "Oh, what led you to want to volunteer there?" And he said, "Oh, I had hip replacement surgery, 3 years ago, and I thought when I retire, I'm going to give back my time that way." So I don't think it has to be another part-time job, which is sometimes what we think of volunteering. It can be, your organization is having a golf classic. Can I help out at the holes, or can I help pass out lunch? It can be, what I say my retirement job is going to be, which is rocking babies in the NICU once a month for all those families who are far away and can't be there. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, but if you ever really want to get to understand an organization, volunteering is a great first step, because you get to meet the people that are doing the work. You don't get to hear me talk about our wonderful
Yeah.
doctors and nurses, and they are wonderful. You get to meet them, you get to see them, you get to understand why the work is important. So I would say find something that you're passionate about, and then find an organization where you can give any amount of time, knowing that that's really going to make you feel great.
I mean, to what you said, now I got to figure out what do I want to do when I retire. I mean, I'm probably some years away,
I've got my
but I don't
plan.
know.
Yes, I've
I
got
have
my
no
plan.
idea. I think about it like I can imagine I just won't retire and I won't just retire and just sit home, right? What will I do next? But I feel like I'm doing already in the nonprofit space, so maybe I'm just still talking and telling stories to young people. Maybe I have no idea. That's
It's
a
a
very
pretty
good
good
question to
mission
really
as
start to
well.
think about. Yeah, it is. I've always been a big believer in just helping the youth. Is that you mentioned it a little earlier? It's not about us. It was when you had the kids. It was about the kids. How do I spend more time with them? How do I be more present? And to me, that's just really what it is how do we continue to just help that younger generation? And I was doing nonprofit work with youth development before I ever had kids. I was in my old high school before I ever had kids, and it's because I understood my upbringing as a child, and I would just want to make sure that others don't have to experience that. How can we help in that sense? So yeah, maybe that is what I'll be doing for the rest of my life is just making sure that other kids don't have to experience what I've experienced. Who knows? But now you got me thinking. Now for the rest of the
You're going to
day,
come
for
up
the rest of
with
the
it.
weekend, I'm
Yes.
thinking. Um, I love this conversation, and we'll have to wrap up soon. But I ask, what's that one story that changed your perspective forever? I know you told us your story, but maybe a story that you've seen about a patient that you've come across that might change ours too.
Gosh, there's so many. I think that when I started this job, I thought that I would primarily be working with grateful patients. Patients where everything went right and the outcome was fantastic, kind of like mine. And boy, they had an opportunity to give back in some way, and they wanted to. And what I have come to realize is the gratitude that people have when they just know that you've done everything that you possibly can for them. And so I could think of a lot of stories, but the one that comes to mind right now is, I'll call him the Snickers man. Snickers, like the candy. He clearly has a name, but he was in our hospital and was on palliative care, and then that transitioned into hospice care. And he had been in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, and was kind of, understandably not in the greatest space sometimes. But he loved Snickers, and so the nurses found that out, and they would come in with clown noses on and little fun-sized Snickers and try and brighten his day. And when he was getting very close to passing, and could no longer eat a Snickers, they would melt Snickers for him and put it on his lip in
Wow.
order to still make him feel like him. And that to me is the beauty of the work that we do and the people that we do it with, and why I'm so proud to call my colleagues, because they see people
Yeah.
And in this world, I believe if we saw each other more, instead of trying to figure out how we're different, but focused
Hmm.
on how we're the same, boy, it'd be a
Absolutely.
better place.
That was good. No, I love to hear these stories. I'm not the person that should be in healthcare because I will pass out if I see certain things.
I'm
Uh,
not, everyone can rest easy. I'm not taking care of them. So,
Lord, but when I hear the work that people give their lives to, it's truly amazing. And I hear those stories, and I talk to individuals in hospice, and um, just hear the excitement of how people are happy to help people.
hmm
That doesn't happen often, all right? That people are just happy to help people. And it's almost weird when you're out in the streets and someone is trying to help you. You automatically think, what do they want from me? But it should be normalized. So I love that you share that story and hope that people, kind of resonate with something like that and realize we just got to be there for each other,
sure do.
at all times. If you can go back, this is your blind question. I had to kind of incorporate it
Okay.
to you. If you could go back to that moment in the fertility journey when you felt most alone, what would you whisper to that version of you now from where you stand today?
It's going to be okay. And you have everything that you need to handle this situation. I think I have spent, as a person and a leader, um, far too long looking for other people's validation. Um, and it has, it's the journey of a life to realize that you have what you need to handle whatever infertility, whatever the health journey is. And that if you can relinquish the need to control and the need to know, and just be present, um, you're going to make it through just fine. I would have been okay. I certainly am over the moon, right, to be a mom to three, but I would have been okay no matter what.
That's so strong. Oh my God, Tracy. I appreciate that. That was really good. I know that took a lot. So I ask you now, what is your blind question to the next leader?
So mine's going to go a different direction. This is something that my daughter and I have been talking about lately. But I do think, right, if you really think about it, it does tell you something about yourself. So you are going to get a tattoo. It's not whether or not you want one. You're going to the tattoo parlor. What are you getting,
Oh my God, it's
and what
good.
does it represent to you?
So good. So I'm gonna share mine since you said that.
Okay.
I was one of those young kids that I remember going to the tattoo shop with one of my friends, and back then it was like the stars were everything. I went there, it got really late, so I didn't get the stars. So then I went again to get his tattoo, right? However, the guy wasn't there, and this time around I wanted the praying hands, with the rosary on the praying hands and all these different things that you see on a normal. So finally, years later, I go and I start a nonprofit. So I had a logo to a nonprofit that really stood for life in full effect, and that's just how I looked at my life. So let me show you here. So it's a bulb. Like it's a logo, probably the first original logo, but there's a story behind it. I'm so happy that I actually got the story. So the book stands for all the knowledge that I've experienced in life. The bulb is for my bright future. The tree is obviously the start of life. And then I never got it done. But the whole arm is supposed to be like, the roots and everything that got me here. Adoption, sexual abuse. Now that I have kids, adding a rose because my little daughter, her middle name is Rose. So things that really incorporate family. So to me, I'm so happy that as a young kid, I never got those tattoos everybody else was getting, but
Yes.
instead I can actually tell the story of what my tattoo looks like. Because people always ask, what what is that? Right? It just looks hella random. It is. It's me. It tells a story. And one day maybe I'll finish it. I could care less if I never finish it. But I'm happy that I did get a tattoo and that it meant something, and I never regret it because I realized it was the start of life for myself. I was going through so much as a young kid, and Tracy, you kind of spoke about it, is looking for validation in others, you know, and because of my life and my upbringing, and realizing I don't need validation. I just need to continue to walk with confidence. I need to, and especially now as a father, it's like, listen, just do it. Just do the best you can with what you have. And that's something that I was talking to and we're kind of completely going off topic here, but I was talking to a friend, and her situation was she's trying to actually build more of a life for herself, because she felt she was like mom was always a part of it. And I'm 35 years old now, and I'm trying to build a better relationship with my mom because growing up I didn't have that, and because life was life in, and she was doing the best of what she could at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
That there was times where I was afraid to ask her a question because I didn't know what the retaliation was. Being sexually abused and adopted. Oh, you don't talk about these things. These are things that we just kind of live with in a sense. So all these different things, and it's just crazy to know that some people are saying, "No, I'm trying to live a life for myself," and I'm like, I'm just trying to have a relationship with my mom, knowing that the end of life for us could be at any time.
That is
And I never wanted to. I used to have resentment, and I don't even know how we got this conversation, but I used to have resentment. But now realizing that it's not about us, let my kids have their relationship with grandma and what that actually looks like, and putting that pride aside, the ego aside. So I don't know. You just kind of just mentioned something that was like, man, that's so good. We always look for this someone to tell us we're doing good, or that you did this right. And it's like just do it because you love it, because
right,
passion, because of purpose.
right.
So I appreciate you. I love your blind question. What is your socials? If people wanted to know more about the school, if they wanted to know more about the nonprofit, or maybe they just want to connect with you, with Tracy on LinkedIn, what is that information?
So I'm at Tracy Madden-McMahon on LinkedIn, Methodist Hospital Foundation.org. I will say, I have a love-hate relationship with social media. Sometimes it is entirely too much, and I have to take a pause and check myself out. But certainly, anything that can be shared with your listeners, anything that we can learn from each other, more than happy to be able to continue on the journey, right? We're learning from each other every step of the way.
I love it. Well, guys, don't forget the system may feel too big to change, but one story shared at the right time can literally shift everything. And Tracy, thank you so much for the stories and for everything that you shared with us today. Guys, if you guys are still watching, another way to support is always to like, comment, and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, but allows people to really see other leaders that are just being authentically themselves, that they're doing what they're doing, not so much, I always say this, not so much for a paycheck, but truly because of a purpose and a passion. And the experiences that we have in our lives that lead us back to these places so we can help somebody else kind of overcome adversity. So thank you, Tracy, for a great conversation. My name is Ephraim. This has been the Heart and Hustle podcast. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Laters.